Welcome to this week's Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. These hangouts are brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We encourage everyone to freely share these recordings and to help spread the knowledge and benefits of our DPost 2.0 blockchain technology that we all call BitShares. While listening to this recording, please feel free to visit our website, beyondbitcoin.org, and be sure to stay tuned in for some additional information at the end of the recording. As always, we would like to say thank you, and we appreciate your support. So please continue to vote for our delegate or worker contract so we may continue providing these valuable services to our community members. So once again, welcome, and please enjoy this week's Hangout.
Welcome everybody to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, November 13th, 2015. I want to remind everybody here today that Bytemaster is here for another hangout where he's going to give some updates on the Cryptonomex team and what they're doing for BitShares. And then he's going to open up for community questions. This is the general format. Bytemaster gives the updates, then we move into the questions. So please let's try to hold back for maybe the first 10 minutes approximately while Bytemaster gives updates, and then we can move into that area where everybody can ask their questions, bring up comments or concerns, and we can move forward with the discussion from there. Like I said before, for those who were not here, for those who are kind of new to this, feel free to ask your questions out loud or in the text box in the bottom left-hand corner of the Mumble client. And with that said, Bytemaster, how's everything going?
Things are busy as always, but it's been another good week. We'd like to give some quick updates. We had another release of the web wallet this past Wednesday. We intend to continue doing weekly releases with bug fix updates for the downloadable light wallet, as well as OpenLedger and the various other projects that depend upon it. One of the biggest items discussed this week was the worker proposal as a combined effort between Bunker Chain Labs and Cryptonomex to help get BitShares where it needs to go. We identified several key proposals and had a great discussion on the forum where we filtered it out, eliminated one of the proposals and got wide support for the others. I figured it would be a good opportunity to discuss those proposals and where they fit in the broader scheme of BitShares going forward. So I would like to thank the community and everyone who's helped evaluate the proposals. We really want to make sure that the things that are done with consensus and cooperation and feedback from everyone involved. And our intent is not to push anything down the BitShares community throat. We want to give you guys options, pick what you want built, and then we'll build it. So there's been a lot of discussion on fees. Fees have been a very hot topic, and there's two main issues. One, people don't like it nickel and dime to death, and two, we have many business partners that are depending upon the fees for their business model. And I'd like to address that topic in a little bit greater detail, because there are two sides to the fee debate. There's the side of the consumer who doesn't want to pay fees, and then there's the side of the businesses that are only viable to the extent that there's some kind of revenue stream that's sizable enough for them. The original idea behind raising fees to be enough to cover the cost of user acquisition, not just the technological cost of bandwidth and memory, was to support these businesses. These businesses, in turn, go out, seek venture capital money, build products and services, and ultimately bring users to the network. So what's good for the businesses is bad for the users, but on the other hand, the businesses are in the job of selling the value proposition, providing value to the user so that the user doesn't mind paying the fee. And that is the thing we always need to keep in mind, is what is the value we are providing to the user, and is it worth the fee they're paying? People don't mind paying fees for something if they're getting some value from it. And from that, if there is no value being provided by the service we're offering, then we're probably not in the right market. What I mean by that is this: if BitShares is just another payment network and it's not providing any value to the user that they couldn't get with a credit card or a check or an intrabank transfer, then we're doing something wrong. And we need to keep our eyes on the fact that the value we're bringing to the table goes beyond just the value of a transfer. It goes beyond what all the other competitors are doing, because it's on a decentralized ledger, it's on an open platform, and in many cases it's much faster than the alternatives. It's also irreversible without chargebacks. Those are qualities that a lot of the other options don't have, and which users would be willing to pay for. So to the extent that we can focus on what makes our value proposition different, we can also understand why we can charge a fee where someone else couldn't. And therefore support the businesses that are being started up. And there's several of them that have contacted us and have been on the forum and saying, hey, don't lower the transfer fees. Our business depends on it. Which really brings us home to the point of keeping some kind of stability and predictability. Entrepreneurs cannot build businesses on a moving target. And if the target is constantly moving, then we end up putting off a lot of the potential entrepreneurs. So that is a whole lot of information to get out there. And now back to the general fee discussion. We want to minimize fees for things like account updates, voting updates, things like that, and charge higher fees for transfers and market orders being filled. The two business models of the market for traders and the transfers for payments and remittance, they're two different businesses. Traders aren't going to be put off by transfer fees, and people doing payments are not going to be put off by market fees. So lowering, I think we can charge on those two things, but try to minimize the other fees in the system. The other place where we can charge high fees are reserving premium names and asset symbols. Those are limited supply. The people who are creating and using those assets are have business plans to monetize them. So it's also not something that's available anywhere else. All right. So the first worker or second worker proposal talks about adjusting the market fees. I'd like to address that a little bit. We have transaction fees and we have market fees. A transaction fee is paid on every operation, and it's denominated in BitShares, and it always goes to the referrers or the network. So an order creation fee, the minimum order fee, that goes to the network and the referrers. Then there is the market fee, and that goes to the asset issuer, and it's a percentage of the trade volume. So if you create an asset, like you're an exchange and you create an asset and you put it on the exchange, you can set a percentage. And that percentage goes 100% to you. It's not divided among the referrers and the referral program, primarily because it's denominated in that user's own asset. So OpenBTC, the market fee is paid in OpenBTC and it goes to OpenLedger. OpenBTC cannot be split among referral programs or any of those things. I want to make that very clear that the market fees don't go to the referral program. However, there is one fee that we could send to the referral program that we are not currently sending, and that is the market fee for BitShares. Currently, we charge a 0% trading fee for trading BitShares against anything else. But we could charge a 0.1% fee and then distribute that percentage to referrers and otherwise, which means that there'd be a lot more profit and a lot more value for referring someone to trade BitShares against other assets on the BitShares exchange versus on various centralized exchanges. So currently, the committee account could increase the market fee and enable that for those assets. But if it did so, the funds from that would be in the control of committee members and not divided. So the second worker proposal is to make trading fees in BitShares payable to referrers, just like all other fees, and also to refund the majority of the order creation fee if the order is canceled without being filled. That allows market bots and liquidity providers to do things on the network without being charged for creating and canceling orders beyond what it actually costs the network in terms of memory and bandwidth, but it'd be low enough that it should not be a factor to their business model like it is today. So, all right, so that's adjusting market fees. The other thing we wanted to do, this is the third worker proposal we presented, is a hosted wallet service. The idea being that the keys and other information that's currently in your wallet and is saved in your wallet backup can be encrypted and stored on the server to be fetched by your account whenever you need it. Your password and the other information used to decrypt it never goes to the server. It's only decoded locally. The reason for this particular feature is we've already had at least one user clear their browser cache and lose 80,000 BitShares. Users want to migrate between devices. They want to have one account that they can use from their computer and their phone and otherwise. And asking people to back up constantly causes people to have fear that they won't do something right, that something will go wrong. It introduces a lot of extra complexities that make the whole service harder to use. It impacts the user experience. So that's something that we put a worker proposal together, and it's generally been accepted. We haven't actually created these proposals on the network, but we will put them on there soon. The next worker proposal was improved market statistics and API. The goal of that proposal is to expose a web API very similar to current exchanges, which means if you've got tools for Poloniex, you should be able to point them at BitShares and use them to generate all your charts and all your trading, whatever it is that you need. We want to standardize that. So there's that one. And the last one is the USD deposit withdrawal KYC management. This is actually a broader subject. We want the exchanges and on and off ramps such as OpenLedger, I think Bunker's doing one, banks and others. Anyone who is going to get serious and have a lot of volume is going to want to have compliance with the laws. If they don't have compliance with the laws, they won't be able to get big without getting shut down. So there are all of these different services need KYC tools. This means verifying that a particular account belongs to a known individual with copies of driver's license and passports and utility bills and all that information. They need to have a means of managing those properties, collecting that information. They also need, for fiat deposit withdrawal, features to track all the information associated with banks and routing information. There's like a form with like 20 fields that users need to provide in order to get a withdrawal via wire transfer. Those types of things should be integrated into the wallet just as seamlessly as they are in any other centralized exchange, so that users can come to the wallet and have a very familiar experience. They don't have to use the wallet, then use some other site and piece it all together. It's just right there in front of them. They can look at their account, say, I want to withdraw. They click withdraw. Oh, okay, here's where I enter my bank account routing information. Okay, here's where I do the know your customer validation, so on and so forth. So, along with the various features or KYC management is also the GUI features for asset management. This means if you're an asset issuer, being able to whitelist and blacklist people from the GUI, being able to update the flags on your asset, being able to update your market fees on your asset, being able to do prediction markets and do global settling of that. All the asset management features for which you currently have to use the back end, the command line tools. Those things need to be developed, and it's a lot of work to do that. We're talking lots of screens on the web wallet, and each one of those forms and user interactions is a lot of work to do. So that's the last proposal we put together. All of these proposals have been done with Bunker Chain Labs being the person who receives the worker pay. They don't pay Cryptonomex until we've delivered something that meets the specs of the proposal as validated by them. The prices are denominated in fiat terms, and any surplus BitShares are returned to the network. So I really think working with Bunker Chain Labs to provide this accountability factor means that both BitShares and Cryptonomex benefit by having this arrangement. Last thing we want to do is be seen as voting in a bunch of work for ourselves and getting paid without delivering. So we certainly want to deliver products before Cryptonomex is paid for anything. The last component of all this is perhaps the biggest one, and that is the intellectual property associated with the Graphene wallet. This is the wallet everyone uses. It's currently open source for individual use, but if you're a business and you want to create something like Open Ledger, you have to license it for that particular use case. And what we've discussed doing is making the web wallet open source in the same way that the Graphene backend is. Namely, you can use it for anything BitShares related, but not for non-BitShares blockchains. And if we're going to do that, we'd want to be compensated for the work we've done to create it thus far, and to also help support and upgrade it. The idea here is we want entrepreneurs like Open Ledger and various other parties to be free to innovate and grow and build their own things on it, and to do so without fear of being held captive by us. We don't want Cryptonomex to hold BitShares back. So that's something that we're considering doing. And I think that there's been a lot of positive support for that. And I think that would really help contribute to the overall openness of the BitShares network. So
there's a pretty good discussion going on that I've been tracking in the conference room. But before I get into it, there's a more general question that was brought up by Kuro, and he says, I have a question for Bytemaster. This goes toward the cost of development on the fees issue. I'm wondering how you guys justify the cost for the changes required. My partner and I had a look at the code, and while it's not simple by any means, actually elegant compared to other cryptos, we also find no way it would require the estimated time of 80 hours at $100 per hour. This is literally insane for us to even consider for changing fees in pre-established code. You don't have to write a new code segment, just adjust current variable settings. Is this a correct way of looking at it, or is something being missed here in this perspective, and what is your response to that?
Every single change you make to a blockchain can have unintended consequences. In addition to changing the fees, we have to implement unit tests that verify that the changes do what they say they would do, and that they don't break anything that exists. So we have a lot of unit tests now that would currently break as a result of these changes. We have to go back and retrofit those tests and verify that they are still correct, as well as create new tests that verify that the fees are split out as they are supposed to be. So the cost with making the changes to the code is a tiny fraction of the cost of implementing and deploying the change. It requires managing it through multiple branches, documenting the change, building the release binaries, coordinating with all the witnesses, putting in hard forking code to trigger, the switch between it, the old way and the new way at a particular time so that the transition goes off smoothly. So yes, if you're just going to look at how much time it would take to just make the one change to the one or two functions that are going to implement the fee, market fees for BitUSD and dividing it among the referral program, that's probably only a couple of hours to make that change. But it's everything else around it. It's the coordination of, 5 or 6 people to do this release and manage it. It's just a lot of work to change something. And that's the other factors. There's risks and unknowns. We're doing these type of things fixed price. So we take our estimate of what it's going to take to do the work, build in a buffer, so that if it takes longer, we're not losing money, and if it takes less, then we have some profit. We're really not trying to do anything unreasonable here. We're just trying to be honest with the real costs versus taking the approach of, well, we're only going to look at this 1% and only bill for that, and then lose money on all the other costs that no one likes to account for.
Out of curiosity, have you considered a kind of variable cost, essentially saying, we believe that the core features of this work are going to take us, say, 6 hours, but in our experience, that 6 hours of changing the code or parameters very well might open up another, 10 to 20 hours of extra work beyond that, or kind of a general idea of how to extend it beyond the core of the proposal. So then you can accomplish that portion and then kind of come back to the community and say, hey, we need to extend this because of this, and actually point to the reasons why. Would that be a possibility or something like that?
There's two ways to go about it, and they both have their pros and cons. One way is to do time and materials, where we just track how many hours we did, and however many hours we spend on it, that's what we get paid. And then, of course, the complaints are going to be, you guys weren't efficient enough, you took too long, it wasn't delivered, and we've already paid you for all these hours you've done. That transfers the risk from us to the community. The other thing is, when it comes to software development, writing the code is 10%, testing the code is a multiple of it. You spend more time writing tests than you do writing the actual changes. Because it's just difficult to construct tests, because a bad test doesn't actually validate anything, and not having tests means we can't tell if we break something in the future. I would like to address a statement made by Adam about, if we have hundreds of millions of BitShares, what does an extra 30 million mean? First of all, we don't have hundreds of millions of BitShares. And second of all, any BitShares that we may have were mined or purchased, and the ones that we were given during the Angel Shares donation, those have been spent already on the development of this software. So at the end of the day, the BitShares that we have are our own personal stake, and if we spent those BitShares to fund things, then at the end of the day, BitShares would have the features and we'd have no stake in it, which I don't think anyone here believes is a good idea for us to sell out of BitShares just to give features to BitShares. So it's not like a lot of other crypto projects where the founders have 10, 20% or more equity. We're down at like a couple percent combined with a lot of people. So this is very decentralized in the ownership, and we're not expecting anyone to sacrifice their wealth to donate to the BitShares stakeholders. And that's why we created worker proposals. That's why we introduced dilution with stakeholder approval, is to, if we all benefit, we all pay. And we don't expect self-sacrifice, because that's not a sustainable, economically realistic model for any system, as we've seen with Bitcoin. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Sure.
So.
Well, and I'll say this, at least from my standpoint, so please take it as just my personal opinion, but Steve Jobs, I would probably pay him and his team a little bit more for keeping up with working on a decentralized version of Apple, just because I know they've been there from the beginning. They know inside and out the code base, and they know, they've dealt with these things in the past, and we know at least what to expect, which is very valuable in this space, having some sense of stability. So I do understand that, and I also understand that, somebody who comes in who doesn't have the reputation necessarily for developing in the BitShares ecosystem might come in and try to go with lower costs and lower fees for the community, but there's also a risk in that if they haven't worked with BitShares before. There's a potential for a lot of little things that can happen that we might not be accounting for. Now, I'm not saying that those positive aspects that I see are outweighing the negative aspects that some others are seeing. Just a point that I haven't really heard pointed out. I think it's pretty important to recognize that. I mean, you guys are pretty much as close to the experts as it gets on BitShares, right?
Right. So I would like to address that. They quoted $100 an hour means 80 hours to do the job, but that's not actually the case. The rates that Cryptonomex is able to charge and get paid for work is actually much more than $100 an hour. So that means we're not talking about huge numbers of hours to do work, and we're not talking about huge margins. There's opportunity costs every hour we don't sell to the market. we're losing money as a business and as individuals. We don't want to milk BitShares, but this is just the cost of getting things done. But it does present an opportunity. If there's a lot of profit to be made doing work, then that causes the market to supply more people capable of doing so. So if the demand for cryptonomics and our team's skills can charge a higher rate, other people from the forum can come out of the woodwork and say, hey, I do it for $50 an hour. And they're just a lone developer. They don't have the overhead of a whole company and everything else that entails. They don't have other opportunities to make more. So they come and they do this work. That's a huge opportunity to bring developers to BitShares. And then as a community, we have to decide, does it make more sense to hire an unknown at $50 an hour and then have someone like Cryptonomex just review it to make sure that the code is done in the proper way and doesn't introduce any unintended side effects? Or do they go with Cryptonomex? And you can ask a lot of people in the development space. Sometimes you go with someone who's half the cost and they take 3 times as long, which means that you need to do things on a fixed price, deliver it or not, or either deliver something that meets the specification or you don't get paid. And that's the approach that you need to take with anyone who's coming and promising to do things cheaply. If they can do so, Cryptonomex is looking to hire people that are able to do these things because we've got more work on our plate than we have people that can do it. So if you have the skills and you want to come in and you can actually implement some of these worker proposals, talk to us, and we can either sub part of it out to you on a contingent basis of you actually delivering a working product, or you can go to the stakeholders directly and have them pay you and then get a discount over Cryptonomex. But if we take the approach of paying people below market rates, expecting to people to be philosophically motivated or to be motivated by their stake that they already have, in addition to the compensation, then we're not going to find new developers. We're not going to grow the ecosystem. In fact, it's probably better for BitShares to overpay for work as a market signal that these skills are needed and that bright minds and intelligent programmers should come look at BitShares and learn how to do it. And the advertising effect of high prices cannot be underestimated.
Yeah, well, this would be another question that I've been kicking around personally. These various other graphene-based chains, do they have their own development teams who are working directly with you guys, or are you guys basically working on those chains as the primary core developers as well? And the reason I ask that is because if there are other development teams that are already working on these various other graphene-based chains, these other chains can kind of be the test areas for various implementations or functionalities or iterations of code that could be put into BitShares relatively easily. Do you see that kind of crossover, and does it even exist at this juncture?
Well, there's a lot of people who've contributed to the code. Play has their own team. But Music has hired Cryptonomex. PeerTracks has hired Cryptonomex to do all their work there. But there's Maker's team, and they've got Toast and a few other people that probably know how to do this stuff. There's people on the forum who have skills like PC and whatnot. They've done bounties, they've incorporated code. So there are people out there that know how to do this stuff, and of course, we're more than happy to answer questions about the code, about the structure of things, to give feedback. And I think there's some forum posts that I've made in the past that show here's a template of how you add a feature to the blockchain. And the code's actually divided into things for blinded transfers. That's a major feature. There's 2 or 3 files that completely describe that feature, and it's mostly independent of everything else. So we've got examples in the code of how you add relatively independent features to the blockchain. And generally speaking, it's possible to build new smart contracts into BitShares just as quickly, if not faster, than you can do with Ethereum. To anyone who knows Ethereum and knows BitShares. So,
and you mentioned Play has its own team that is working on this. Are they working on graphene now for certain?
Yes, I believe so.
So they are, I mean, it might be possible at some point in time to reach out to them if, because the way I look at it is if another chain implements something that ends up being very beneficial and we see that it's beneficial in real time, it would be a pretty sound idea in my mind to say, hey, if this applies to the BitShares chain or to, any of the other chains, this would be a pretty good way of going about, adding it on to all of the graphene-based chains. And it might be a little bit cheaper in terms of all these various chains might be able to cover part of the cost. Do you see those opportunities ahead? Or am I just seeing something that doesn't make sense?
I'll say that success of the ecosystem depends on developers. Yes, we need developers. Cryptonomics recognizes the value of developers, and in fact, our business model going forward is very much focused on developers and allowing people to quickly build applications, which means that we've recognized that documentation and examples, providing the tools for developers is perhaps one thing that we've overlooked. We've gone straight to applications and, we've thought about developers to some extent because we are developing on our own platform. But so far we haven't produced the documentations and geared toward development quite as well as Ethereum. Well, nowhere near as close to how Ethereum's done. And we want to change that. We want to make it so that someone who wants to build a blockchain or a based application can do so in any language they like without having to do all the crazy stuff that you have to do, learn custom languages like Ethereum or have a very restricted environment. We really want to make building blockchain apps easy. That's where Cryptonomics is focused internally, right? When we're not doing stuff for BitShares or for other customers, we're focusing on developer tools.
Awesome. That's a good pivot. Does anybody have any questions or comments at this point?
Is it all right if I jump back to the proposal again? I had a question about the second one. I guess I'll call it number 2, proposal number 2 on your recently released worker proposal. So my understanding of it was, and maybe I read this wrong or I understood it wrong, but you were talking about giving the or having the committee members control. And I'm just going to call it a slush fund. Maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but specifically the volume-based fees for bid asset trading would not go to the referral program. Is that correct? Was that how you had split up the second proposal?
Yes, the primary reason is assets denominated in something other than BitShares need to be converted to BitShares to pay fees because all the referral program is denominated in BitShares. This would put a lot of pressure on the fee pools and to do the conversion of all these market fees into BitShares in order to then pay out to the referral program. Generally speaking, the fees that are earned from the network should go into funding the fee pool itself. So the committee members will sell the BitUSD they earn, get BitShares, use the BitShares to fund the fee pool. Now, any spending of these funds is done so with a 2-week review period. So currently it's a 1-hour review period, and once we get the tools in place for more committee members and users to view the proposals, we'll extend that as things stabilize.
Okay, yeah, I guess that does make sense as far as, having to convert them if they were actually going to go towards the referral program. But I'm just wondering, because it's such a large potential there, especially if we're doing volume-based fees, and it just seemed to me like having the committee members control funds was just sort of another layer of complexity that people would have to keep track of. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing with it? And, do voters have direct control over that besides just being able to vote out the committee members? I mean, there's no, threshold voting or whatever directly on the fees like we have it with the worker proposals, right? Where we can say, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't. But I had another sort of thought, and maybe this wouldn't work at all, but would there be a way to automate that process rather than giving the committee members control? And I guess what I mean by that is, would there be a way, I don't know, could you liquidate them at the feed price, kind of like the forced liquidation feature we have, or would that be too much pressure on the shorts at this stage? Or is there any other way that we could, if we say, okay, well, the primary reason, or the primary thing that should be done with this is to fund the fee pool, or, even, fund the referral program. Maybe we say we want to send all this to the referral program. Either way, they've got to be converted back to BTS. So is there a way to automate that rather than having the committee members or, some member of the committee member having to manually go in and sell the bid assets to get them converted back to BTS?
So the short answer is yes, it's possible to completely automate anything. The long answer is that there are so many possible ways that you might want to do it, and the complexity involved means it's cheaper and more practical to have a little bit of trust in the system between a hopefully diversified group of committee members, so that they actually do have some resources to make some decisions, and that kind of flexibility would be lost if we start hard coding things, which means now if you want to change what you do with the money, you got to create a new worker proposal and spend more than you would have spent on that money to change the rules. Now, you spend more on the worker proposals to change the rules than electing a diverse group of committee members to do whatever it is you want to do with that money. So it shouldn't be a lot of money, and at any time it can be sold, converted to BTS, and returned to the reserve fund. I think this is no different than having the management team of a company have some control over spending, and it's with a review period, so it's not like they're going to be able to spend it all themselves. And these are people who have been trusted to look out for BitShares and make decisions about fees and rates and everything else. If you can trust them with the knobs on the network parameters, then you can trust them to hold a insignificant number of BitShares. We're not talking about a huge percentage of the market cap. We're talking fractions of a percent would actually be held here. So short answer is yes, we can automate all kinds of things if we can define the rules. The long answer is that's actually more expensive than having the flexibility.
Since we're talking about the back to the proposal again. I'd like to find out. I have some clarity on how the KYC is going to be and AML is going to be implemented. You mentioned in the wallet. I mean, I recognize the need for it, but on the other hand, I don't want to have people that are in an anonymous position to sacrifice that anonymity or whatever semblance of it they may have. So could you speak to and clarify? Because in my view, it seems like a lot of those characteristics are on the plate of Identibit more than it is Cryptonomex and BitShares. So, well, maybe not Cryptonomex, but BitShares.
Yeah. KYC is needed for any gateway. Identibit tries to take it beyond BitShares. BitShares makes it optional. Identibit makes it mandatory. But we don't want to have BitShares doesn't have it and Identibit does. That would be terrible for BitShares. This optional KYC native integration is there to support the on and off ramps, which are the lifeblood of the ecosystem. Without those people being able to do their jobs legally, and without our users having easy access, easy integration with that, there's all kinds of resistance to getting into BitShares. So it's purely optional. It's tools that are necessary. CCEDK needs it, Polinix needs it, and OpenLedger needs it. But anyone who's trying to start up businesses, because that's the thing here, I really want to emphasize that a blockchain, a public ledger, a DAC, if you will, depends upon incentivizing people to join and build their business and having those tools available to them. If we don't have profitable interactions with the DAC, if we don't have the on and the off ramps, if we don't have those things, there's a lot of friction to growing. It's hard to get new users in, and so on and so forth. So, I guess there's that. Now,
just so long as it's optional, that's the main thing. That's the clarity I was looking for. Now, another point I'd like to address along those lines is this whole discussion actually is LuckyBit had a post with Jacob in the forum yesterday that you commented on briefly and endorsed basically their perspectives, and that is the whole idea of financial freedom is kind of the meme, if you will, that we want to push strongly because it has so many aspects of how it can connect with people on all sides of the table, and I really like to see that financial freedom meme really pervade almost every discussion that we have, because I think that's something that will resonate with everybody.
Exactly. So let me think about this a little bit closer. If you want to have a movement and you want to change the world, BitShares needs to have something that goes beyond just being an exchange. We've got to provide a user experience that is as easy to use as anything else out there. But there needs to be something more, some reason for getting involved to unite everyone together, right? We're all about changing the world. That means we all need to coordinate to take actions that give us freedom. If all we're doing is building an exchange, well, there's lots of exchanges out there.
That brings a really good question, and I hate to interrupt you, but I've been talking to a lot of people, and this is generally one of the things that comes up a lot, especially when we start talking about self-governance. Everybody here knows that I put up a lot of polls on our forums. I'm probably one of the worst for it, so I apologize to those who don't like them being put up all the time. However, it's absolutely necessary in my mind for us to do this, to kind of give me a sense of, the pulse of the community and where they stand on various subject matters. Now, with respect to all this, one of the big things and the low-hanging fruit to me is voting on the blockchain. Is there anything going on with that? Any plans with that? Where do we stand on that? Because that's, to me, is a really good place to start, because it really would help all of the DACs that come out that are going to be needing to have their own forms of self-governance, right?
Yes, voting on the blockchain is another thing that depends upon KYC. But yes, blockchains are organizations that are public, in the sense that everyone can see the blockchain. It's self-governed. And just being a public, just trying to run yourself like a business is not exciting to people. People don't want to just join that. There needs to be a higher purpose. Like, why are we creating an exchange? Why do we need this exchange? And the answer is so that we have freedom to trade with each other, so that we can have price stability without depending on anyone else. It's for independence, right? You join BitShares so you have financial independence and those freedom things. And if we lose track of the why and we just focus on the what, it's an exchange, we're competing with other exchanges. Okay, well, I can go exchange anywhere. Why do I want to use BitShares? And it's not just because it's a better exchange, it's because it gives us financial freedom. So when we talk about the features that we should prioritize for BitShares, we should focus on things that support the cause, the why. And we should figure out how to market the why more. The why BitShares. Why should you build your business on BitShares versus on your own blockchain? Well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to make money and have a business of your own? Or are you trying to be part of something bigger that changes the world? Do you want to move to Gulch and start up a business there and support that economy because you want that economy to grow and you benefit when the economy grows? Those are the reasons that are going to cause people to jump over the hurdles of early adoption. Those are the things that people will recognize. Hey, I don't mind paying a higher transfer fee because I know that these fees are helping to grow the economy, which is helping to grow my freedom. And it's insignificant in that frame of mind. But if you're just looking at it, well, we need to minimize costs and go just be an exchange, that's a surefire way to die. I think there's a TED Talk that talks how you have to work from the inside out, the why, with the why being at the core and the product being at the end, and how. BitShares is the how, it's not the why. A lot of companies, they sell what they have and they sell on features, but they don't sell on why. Apple sells on why. And the leading brands sell on why, because why gets to the heart of how people make decisions. It's the part of the brain that is not the logical part. It's the part that resonates with people and causes them to make choices. So you can have the best product on the market with all the logic on your side, and people will still choose against you, irrationally so, because of why. If they think, it's just a very important thing that we need to keep in mind. And I apologize myself for sometimes getting lost, losing track of the why in the midst of everything that's going on. But that is a very good thing. I'd like to answer a few questions here on Genesis. I can't even read that.
Genesis, yeah. That's right.
He's asking the question, if I want to hire someone to build blockchain apps, what skills do they need to have, and so forth. And I'd answer that if you want to hire someone, you can hire Cryptonomex. You can also hire Block Trades. They've got people there that do things. Cryptonomex hires Block Trades to do some of our work. So there's that. And if you want to hire your own developers, then there's two parts of it. If you're doing graphene development, then you need C++ developers to do custom smart contracts. Otherwise, you need JavaScript programmers and people who know React.js. Those are the things you need. At the end of the day, over the next several months, we will be producing tools that will give you many more options for building your own custom applications with a much wider range of selection of developers. We really want to make blockchain technology accessible to the masses of developers out there who don't know anything about it.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear, and the reason why is that it's just a natural fit for some companies who currently in their business model are say adjudicators of contracts, and it's something we do all the time with the tools that are available to us through the legal system or through our regulated capacity. For example, registered engineers. We are codified by law to do certain things. So we do this already, and it's just such a natural fit for us to just jump on a blockchain, and the fees are there. It's not even a problem to pay fees. We just need to we need to be able to transfer this virtual machinery to articulate our physical real world machinery. And so we need to find the people who put that interface, and we need to do it. We need to have a lot of them. We can't be held behind we can't be, they can't supersede us. So we need to have that internally.
Yeah, in that case, I'd say Cryptonomex' role would actually be to help teach and train and guide the initial design while you start up your own team of engineers. If you've got bright programmers who know C++ and JavaScript and React.js, you have all the skills, all the raw material you need, and then do a little bit of high-level consulting with us to help point them in the right direction, and then once they're up and running, you won't need us anymore.
Well, one of the things that I think Cryptonomex has been criticized for being way out there in Virginia, and they should be in Silicon Valley, and they see that as a weakness. I think it's a strength because we're going to be in Kansas City, we're going to be in Missoula. I mean, we need to have people there. So you guys developing with that in mind is hugely valuable.
I just wanted to butt in real quick and mention that a number of applications in the BitShares sphere are actually developed in C# and not JavaScript at all. That's including our TipBot and Meta Exchange.
Well, that's a very good point. The reality is you interface with BitShares via WebSockets and standardized protocols like JSON. You can develop your website in whatever website framework you like. If you know JavaScript, we have tools for doing the wallet management, and you can just call those tools for signing transactions and broadcasting them to the network and talking to our API. So if you're in the browser using JavaScript, if you're on the server and on the back end, you can use any language you like. It's just a question of, do you need to actually sign transactions, or can you just talk to a C++ wallet that does that for you? But yeah, we use open protocols, JSON, RPC, and
I just wanted to correct you, yes. And I can't pronounce his name either. I just wanted to let him know that development in this sphere does not necessarily require knowledge of React.js or JavaScript at all.
Right. So if you want to build on top of our GUI and just do some small changes, then that would be your best bet. Also, in my opinion, those technologies are some of the best technologies available. If you're doing new development. If you have existing applications built on other frameworks and you want to integrate with that, then all those things are possible. But if you have a team of programmers, it doesn't really matter what languages they know or frameworks they know. It's possible to integrate.
We have in Genesis Hangout, on Thursdays, and this is where I'm trying to get people together to plug into this community that's looking very seriously at integrating blockchain technology to our existing business model. And it's not banks, it's not insurance, it's the professional engineering industry. And we're looking at a lot of different blockchains, and so far it's between Ethereum and BitShares. And I like BitShares until they have a POS. I like BitShares the most. So we have that hangout, and this is where we could talk in detail if anybody wants to attend.
Great. I would like to add that BitShares supports this thing called a custom operation. This is the ability to embed arbitrary data into the BitShares blockchain, and you just pay a data fee. This means that it's possible for you to develop applications that the blockchain establishes a deterministic order of events. And if you want to build a blockchain-based application that is secured by the distributed nature of the BitShares blockchain, you can define your own operations that go into the blockchain and then write your interpreter of those operations in any language you like to come up with your state. The only limitation that you have with custom operations is you can't control funds as a result of your custom logic, because the blockchain itself is in complete control of all funds. You would have to create an account with multisig and have everyone running your own application decide when to sign transactions from that multisig account. In many ways, it's like a side chain right on BitShares that you can put anything you like into it.
Quick question, what are the fees on that?
They're relatively insignificant. They're like pennies a kilobyte.
Is that related to content central networking?
I'm not familiar with that phrase.
Content centric networking?
Yeah, I have no. I don't know what you mean by content central networking.
I don't know either. I'm just hearing this stuff in the virtual world here, and it's sort of the idea that instead of securing the channel, you secure the packet on a blockchain. Talent is talking about this, and I'm wondering if any of you guys have heard about it. It's like what MadeSafe does without a blockchain to actually develop a protocol for blockchain. And again, I'm talking way beyond myself. If anybody else understands this, let me know.
Yes, there's the blockchain industry as a whole started off with a complete application in Bitcoin, and now we're trying to break it down into its more fundamental pieces. And when you combine validation rules with data integrity, you're mixing two things together that can actually be completely independent. And to the extent that things can be made independent, you can build, you can completely secure the order of events and who signed off on it without necessarily saying anything about whether or not the actions taken were valid. And all you need to do is secure who said what and when, and then write some code that interprets who said what and when, and comes up to some conclusion, and it'll be a deterministic conclusion, which means that you can use the BitShares blockchain to build any application you like, because the BitShares blockchain has the ability to secure who said what and when for any application without having to ask permission, without having to vote in new smart contracts. Just by publishing, here's some data, I'd like to incorporate it, and this data has been approved by the following BitShares accounts. So BitShares provides the account management, the multi-sig, it will verify all the signatures, who said it, when did they say it. BitShares handles that, as well as logging what they said, the actual content of the message. And then you can write your application in Python that just processes all of the custom operations, right? Just filter the ones out that belong to your application, and create a new state, which means if you wanted to create your own custom crypto token that has all kinds of crazy rules, you can do that on the BitShares network without having to do anything. It means you can have parallel applications running at the same time and without slowing down the network. So that's the opposite approach to Ethereum, which is make everyone define their application logic, put it on the blockchain, and everyone runs the same application logic. That gives Ethereum some powers as far as your smart contracts can manipulate Ethereum tokens, but for a lot of applications, you don't need tokens at all, and the BitShares network is perfect for securing those types of things.
The reason is that we want to put a curiosity layer on these blockchain transactions so that certain people can open certain things. It's sort of a smart key to open and close smart contracts, and this is what we're trying to do. And this will be a huge advantage, we think, to the Earth if we could do this. But we're looking for how it can be done.
Well, you should set up a call with us outside of Mumble, and we can give you some more details and help you work through what you're trying to do. Sounds like you have a very interesting application.
Will do. Sounds good. Thanks.
I'd say interesting is a good word for it. Would you agree, Mr. Dan Robles?
Well, it is interesting. It's also, I think, one of the things that people just starting to realize is that what a professional engineer does is stamp drawings, and that's drawing. Once it's stamped by the engineer, is what opens the flow of money from the bank or the insurance company to that project. And these are huge billion-dollar projects. In fact, you could take one of the contracts of a construction contract and break it down into many small contracts, and each one of those are kind of the same matter. You stamp the drawing, it opens the switch, turns the switch, the money flows, and that's like a physical manifestation of what blockchain technology does in a virtual world. And so it's not like a bank. It's not the insurance industry, and those are really sexy, and people are barking down that tree. But nobody realizes that core infrastructure. I mean, there's that saying, a fish has no word for water, and that's the way we are about core infrastructure. We just take it for granted that there's clean food, clean water, cheap transportation, energy, and those are the things upon which the value of the economy is derived. So, it makes perfect sense for us to try to develop this sort of an intrinsic coin, and it would be superior to the dollar, in fact. And we need the virtual mechanism to do so. So it's interesting. It's going to be difficult. We understand that, and we're just looking for the people to help us.
Well, I think you're definitely starting down the right path, and what I'm loving to see is these pools of developers beginning to work in this space, because as these teams start growing and solidifying, you're going to see multiple teams working on various issues. We're going to have most likely debates over which changes need to occur in the ecosystem, and it's going to get really big really quick, I think, at least as long as these people keep coming in, because there is movement that I'm seeing behind the scenes in terms of developers coming on board. It's going to be very interesting. Now, that brings a good question regarding the bringing various developers. One of the big parts that we need to focus on is documentation, and the wiki is a good start, and GitHub is also a great place for these things to be kept updated at all times. Have you considered, Dan, or has anybody else in the community considered what we're looking at in terms of a worker proposal? Thus far has not been considered, but something like that would be a valuable thing for a worker proposal, I believe. has anybody stepped up and talked to you guys? Is anybody interested in working on that? Maybe for brownies or, various other things. We're trying to find a way to keep that documentation and that early on information that developers are going to need as up to date as possible, right?
Yeah, while this gap is here, I actually tried to comment a minute ago, but the mumble stopped working for me. Documentation is something a workable proposal sounds like it'd be a good thing for, but it has to be done from the inside. Unfortunately, the only people that know enough to write a lot of the documentation are insiders at Cryptonomex. So, Xerox helped out a lot. But you really have to have a close tie to the community and a really good ability to pour through the code in GitHub to leak out some of the details there that would require the Cryptonomex team to confirm in order for you to really document it properly and well.
If anybody is interested in doing this, this is what we call a force multiplier in the military. Doing these basic things significantly multiplies the ability, the capacity for other developers to see this and get in really quick and start working on this. If anybody is interested in helping with this project, if you would please PM me on the forums and CC Bytemaster or Stan, that would be very helpful, because I think this is something that I've had multiple people come to me and talk to me about the importance of this and how we're kind of lagging behind on that area. So I just want to be honest and kind of, at least from the perspectives that I've received, that's something that our community, if we can get on board with helping get that accomplished and keep it updated, it'd be awesome. I don't know, did Rob Rigo get paid for any of the stuff he did with the early Wikipedia? Or was he just doing it free?
Well, here's the thing. I've been working on documenting stuff all this week, and almost I'm taking a documentation first approach. Now, I haven't released any of it yet, and I'm not going to actually release it until it's all done. But several weeks ago, I came in and I said documentation is the product, and that's where we're going. So we're going to have a lot more documentation, a lot better documentation, trying to make this a much better environment for developers. And some of that actually involves updating our code. As we write the documentation for things, we realize, well, gosh, that's really obtuse. Yes, we documented it, but we can do better. And so we are taking some time to improve that. Right now, we try to put a lot of things in the wiki on for BitShares on Graphene, but yes, you can expect a night and day difference in the quality of the documentation coming out of Cryptonomex in the months ahead.
That's really great to hear, Bytemaster. It's got to be an amazing challenge. I know in the places I've worked before, documentation is always lagging behind development, and that kind of has to go that way to a degree. But it's going to be a challenge to manage getting the documentation to align with what's actually deployed in the spot of the rapid development. I'm glad to see you're putting out a weekly release cycle for GUI changes that will help your efforts in documentation as well. So that's really key, is how that's all managed and how they need to be lock synced together.
I'd like to make a personal suggestion, and that's could you update the GitHub's main page to reflect the release build?
It should be that way now, but if it's not, then...
No, it reflects the testnet currently, which significantly slowed down my personal progress in building the graphene client. I don't know about anybody else.
Oh, if you're talking about the release page of Graphene or the release page of BitShares?
BitShares too, the GitHub repository. The readme.md shows the testnet build, not the release build. You actually have to go to the bitshares.eu documentation to find the release steps.
Okay. Well, Xerox, I think he's on this call. That sounds like a perfect opportunity for taking the work you've done with the EU documentation, and we need to get that front and center both on BitShares.org as well as the README files, so that people looking for documentation find all that great work. You can have the best documentation in the world if no one knows where to find it. Exactly. What good is it? So, Zira, can you make sure that we update the READMEs to point to that? We're also going to point to doc.bitshares.org to the work that Xerox's been doing there. He's been invaluable for doing documentation, and I can't thank him enough for taking on that heroic effort. So, thank you.
Yeah, hooray to Xerox. He's been doing a phenomenal job. I remember when BitShares 2 was released, and we went from going from the testnet code base on CNX over to BitShares repository. That switch did not happen that happened on the day of. I was waiting the night before I was ready for deployment, and then the next day we had to build it, and it was not on the same place in GitHub. And I didn't see any announcements about that at all. It took me completely by surprise. So having the information put out there, like you said, Bytemaster, it's got to be well known where people go to get information. And when we have splits of the code base like that we did that day, it was really difficult to keep up with.
All right, guys. Thank you for another great mumble. I'll see you same time, same place next week.
Sounds good. And thank you, as always, for everybody who's attending these Hangouts.